Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're regular here, you know I review many photographic, audio, video related products. Now today I'm taking a look at the Canon EOS R8, which is a full frame mirrorless camera that uses the Canon RF mount. Now this is their latest. It's actually been out well over a year. It's got the 24 megapixel sensor in there, but is the same sensor that's in the R6 Mark II. The nice thing with the Canon R system, vast majority of the bodies, and including my Sony R10 that's getting a sort of a wide shot looking across this way, it has got most lenses, well, virtually all the Canon RF lenses have a control ring. This 28mm pancake lens has a control ring on the front of the lens. Now, I have changed that from being, you can set it up for either focus, you can set it up for using it as a control ring, and I've got it set up using it as a control ring. So I can actually use that to adjust the exposure compensation. I could have set it up for ISO and various other functions. I've set it up for exposure compensation. So half press on the shutter release, turn that, and then that will adjust the exposure, or I can use the back dial. So I've got either way of being able to adjust the exposure with my Canon R8. And that works the same on the Canon RF 24-50, their kit lens. That's got a control ring. I've got that set up for the same thing. Where we are. I've got that set up for the same thing. As opposed to focus, I've got that set up for adjusting the exposure compensation. And that works great if I'm using it on my APS-C body as well. If I'm using it on my R10, I can still use the 24-50. Although you have to take into account a 1.6 times crop factor if I was using this on my R10. Now, back to the R8. The R8 is a very, very lightweight camera. I shall put the weights in the video, but on the top, fairly traditional set of dials on the top here. It's the same body as the Canon RP, but it's lighter than the Canon RP, and it's got so many more features than what the RP has. Now they've swapped around a couple of the buttons on the top here. This used to be the on-off switch on the RP. They've now made that a dedicated movie and stills dial, which is awesome. The on-off switch is now around the actual one of the command dials. So it's got lock on and off around the command dial here. That is absolutely brilliant. You can turn it on and off one-handedly. So when I'm walking around, you know, with just using it with one hand, I can turn it on and off using that one hand, that one dial. So I think that is perfect. Obviously, 3-inch articulating screen. You'd be surprised if it didn't have that these days, but 3-inch articulating screen. Command dials and buttons on the back, all programmable to what functions you want. I'll give you a quick indication here. I've got, let's turn it on so you can see. Yeah, so these buttons can be configured to what you want. For example, this bottom button, I've configured to increase the brightness of the screen. One push of a button and the screen will increase its brightness. And that is ideal for taking photographs out in bright sunshine, in daylight. I find that an absolute greasy bonus. I've set that up on my Canon R10 as well. So they all work. Both cameras have got the buttons doing the same things. And I think that is great, certainly for memory, having to remember what does what, you know, muscle memory. So yeah, that is great. It's got a PASM dial on the top there, dedicated video record button on the top. And it's got a AF lock button and also AF on button. People will use that if you do back button focusing. I don't bother with that. I just use half press on the shutter release. It has many autofocus features, which I absolutely love. Because I have to rely on autofocus with my eyesight, you know, it's great. It's got autofocus tracking, which the Sony cameras have. Most of the cameras have that these days. So it can either track a subject or it will track either a human or bird, animals. And the great thing with this camera, over and above my Fujis or my Sonys, is that it's got an auto mode. So when you set it to auto, the camera will detect whether it is a human or whether it is an animal. And I tell you what, it does a really good job. It really, really does. 9 times out of 10, I can leave it on auto. But obviously, if I know I'm going to be photographing me cats, I'll switch it to animals, so it definitely will pick up the face, the eye, or the body of the animal. Likewise, if I'm doing portraits, I would switch it to human, so it definitely picks up the eye again, or the face, or the body of a human. So great features as far as autofocus on here. One thing that people have criticised is lacking an autofocus joystick. Even the R10 has an autofocus joystick, which would normally be positioned somewhere around here on the back here. That doesn't bother me actually. I very rarely, even with the cameras that do have an autofocus joystick, I don't use it. I use touch and drag, which basically means you can touch your thumb on the, or anything, preferably the thumb on the back of the screen, and move it around while you're looking through the viewfinder, and that will set your focus point. So I can set it on my Fuji X-H10 there, take the photo, and then that will have taken the photo nice and sharp of my Fuji, not X-H10, X-H2. That would have taken the photograph of the X-H2. So I don't need the autofocus joystick. I don't miss the autofocus joystick. I'm more than happy using just touch and drag, and I think that works exceptionally well in my use case. It has, so many other features. It has got the same battery as the Canon Canon RP, not LP, the Canon RP, and the Canon R10. But that's a bonus for me. When I'm out and about taking photographs, I don't need to have two sets of batteries or whatever, just for one. And it is the Canon LP17 battery, which is used in many of the Canon cameras. You will need a few spare batteries because you can't take hundreds and hundreds of images with this one battery. It's about 300 odd images it will take on one charge, but I mean, that's fine. The video specs on this camera is fantastic. It does have 10-bit video recording, but that's predominantly if you're using Canon C-Log. It's C-Log 3 built into this camera, so it's great for color grading. I don't tend to do that, so I use the 8-bit video recording. 8-bit is completely fine for the sort of stuff that I do from a YouTube channel. My OM system, OM5 is recording in 8-bit, and that's fine. And I've got my Canon R10 filming in 8-bit. And my Sony RX100, no it isn't, it's the ZV-1 is actually recording in 8-bit. So 8-bit is fine for a lot of applications, but the fact this has got 10-bit video recording internal, I think that is, great for a camera at this price point and of this size. It also has power delivery, which is what I'm using with my Canon R10. So you don't have to worry about the battery running out, which is great because it's only a little battery. So it has got power delivery on the camera, so you can run a USB block into the USB-C port of the camera and run it while you're doing your video recording. And because it's the same body as the Canon RP, you can get battery grips for the Canon R8, which is also great as well. So you can extend the battery life by double. So if you're out taking photographs or you're out doing video, you can extend the battery life, of the camera. Although obviously using the grip will make the camera bigger. I don't do that again. I like its compact size. I'd be more than happy just putting a couple of extra batteries in the camera. Now it is the RF mount. So the RF mount at the moment, we're in June 2024 when I filmed this. As of now, Canon haven't released the rights to third-party lens manufacturers to make lenses, autofocus lenses, to be compatible with the RF mount. So you are restricted to Canon lenses. Although they're starting to build a wider range of Canon lenses and more affordable lenses. I mean, the 24 to 50 kit lens is a really nice lens. It is a kit lens, but it's actually a really nice lens, and 24 to 50 is quite a nice range. That's quite a handy range. So I use that quite a bit, but I would highly recommend getting hold of the Canon, or any brand actually, but the Canon EF to RF adapter. It's really compact. It's not that big. There's no lens elements in it. It is purely, just electrical contacts. And that enables you to use Canon EF lenses on the RF body. Or not just Canon, but Sigma, Tamron, whatever. This is the Canon EF 50mm. Now that brand new is 130 quid. That's what I paid for it on Amazon, and that'll work beautifully with the Canon R8. I have used it. I'll be using it for video. You get lovely depth of field because it's an f1.8 aperture, and it's only 130 quid. So it's a no-brainer. If if you don't want to be spending larger amounts of money using using and buying Canon RF lenses, adapt to your old EF lenses or buy EF lenses. It's a great option for the RF mount, and the autofocus works fantastic on the adapter, using EF lenses with the adapter. So does the not only the autofocus, the exposure control, and all the EXIF information is transmitted through the adapter without any problem. Getting back to the image quality from the Canon R8. Now, as I said earlier, it has the same sensor as the R6 Mark II. Now, many of you will be thinking a 24 megapixel sensor in 2024 isn't really enough. It doesn't cut the mustard. But it does for me, and I think it will do for the vast majority of people. I don't crop my images really tight. I think if you was a wildlife photographer or even sports photographer, yeah, you might want to get a camera with a larger pixel count so you can crop in tighter, or go for something like the Canon R7, which has a 32 megapixel APS-C sensor, because it will get you in tighter anyway, because I have that 1.6 times crop factor, and it's a larger pixel count, so you can crop in that little bit tighter as well. So this probably isn't the camera for you if you're a sports or wildlife photographer or videographer, because of being able to, chop in. But the image quality that comes off the sensor, if you're not cropping in really tight, is fantastic. It's really lovely. Now, I've got some sample images here. I will put up on my Flickr page. I'll leave a link to a description on my Flickr page in this video, so you can actually find the Flickr page with these images on. It's not going into any detail here, but the dynamic range, the sharpness, the sharpness is relative really to the lenses that you're using. So I'm not going to go into great detail of the sharpness, but basically the dynamic range, you can pull up the shadows and pull down the highlights without any issue if you're shooting RAW. It's 14-bit RAW as well, as opposed to 12-bit. So again, you're getting that extended dynamic range in the RAW files. And you're just getting really beautiful images that you can use for printing, you can use for publications, websites, whatever you want to use them for, absolutely beautiful. I can, and again, depending on what lenses you're using, you get great depth of field because it's a full frame sensor. You've got that real full frame look, that lovely bokeh, that lovely depth between the foreground and the background, between your subject and the background. Really nice. So yeah, you're never going to get any issues with the image quality that comes off this sensor. And don't get me wrong, you can crop these images. This sensor does produce images that you can crop quite nicely, but I would just resist the temptation to want to crop too tightly, again, because it is only a 24 megapixel sensor. I say only as if it's really low these days, but it isn't. It's absolutely fine. So yeah, highly recommend the Canon R8 if you are looking for a nice, compact, all-rounded, well-rounded camera that you can use for going traveling. Then the R8 will fit the bill very nicely. I love its controls. It's dual controls on the top here. Easy to get to all the controls on the top there. Lovely 3-inch articulating screen, nice quality viewfinder. That's a brief look at the Canon R8. I was actually a little earlier comparing it to my Canon A1 or AE1, which most people wouldn't even know what this is. But this was my favourite camera back in the 70s when I used to sell camera gear. This was my favourite. I used to recommend this one to everyone. I loved my Canon AE1. I've got 3 or 4 of them and the Canon A1. But the weight difference, now I thought back then this was really compact and quite lightweight, but the weight difference between these two cameras is staggering, absolutely staggering. With my arthritis and my age now, there's no way I would go out and about with a camera of this weight when I can get something like this, which is less than half its weight. So yeah, that's what we used to use with these old film cameras with massive amount of weight. And listen to that shutter. Wow, that's got some kickback in it. But yeah, so that is the Canon EOS R8. Highly recommended, full frame body. So yeah, if you want to find out more information, I will leave links in the description where you can get more information from Canon. I'll leave a link to their website in the description of this video. So there we go. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. Hit the like button if you like the content of my videos. Would really, really appreciate that. That's how we grow the channel. Thanks very much. Cheers for now. Bye.